Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. I invite you to bow your heads in prayer. Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions, to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake for the benefit of the City of Joondalup and our residents. Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. Nala Karich Wajak Mort Kain Karak Nijabuja. We acknowledge Noongar people as the original custodians of this land. I declare this council meeting open at 6:30 p.m. In accordance with the recording and live streaming of council meetings, council policy, this meeting will be video recorded and live streamed on the city's website, with the exception of confidential items and periods of adjournment as determined by the presiding member. Cameras have been positioned in such a way as to avoid members of the public. However, by being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the possibility that their image may be live streamed to the public. Recordings will also be made available on the city's website following the meeting. The official record of the meeting will be the written minutes kept in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 and any relevant regulations. Members of the public gallery are reminded it is a requirement under the city's meeting procedures local law to act in a courteous and respectful manner when you're in the council chamber. You are asked to show proper respect to anyone who is exercising their right to ask questions of the council and/or deliver public statements. I ask that respect to extend to such people whenever they are on city premises while waiting for or having taken their opportunity to ask questions or deliver statements. Under the local law, a person must not create a disturbance by interrupting or interfering with the orderly conduct of these proceedings. This includes expressing approval or dissent, by conversing, or by any other means. Using personal electronic recording devices to record anyone or the meeting is also prohibited under the city's local law. I'd also like to remind members of the public to show proper respect to the city's elected members and staff during these proceedings. The next item of business is declarations of interest. I've received a number before the meeting, so I'll read those out and then I'll go to any further which need to be declared. The first interest is from Councillor O'Neill. It's a financial interest. It's for item 12.1, development and subdivision applications. The extent of the interest is that Councillor O'Neill, clients that Councillor O'Neill is working for appear on the list of approvals. The next interest is from Councillor Gould. It's an interest that may affect impartiality for item 12.2, small bar additions at O'Mara Boulevard, Iluka. It's an interest that may affect impartiality as residents at the Iluka 1 apartments are known to Councillor Gould. A further interest from Councillor O'Neill for item 12.2, it's an interest that may affect impartiality. It is that Councillor O'Neill is a member of the Metro Development Assessment Panel. A further interest declaration from Councillor Gould for item 12.9, appointment of independent persons to perform the functions of the council under clauses 12 and 13 of the Code of Conduct. It's an interest that may affect impartiality if one of the applicants is known to Councillor Gould. A interest declaration from myself, it's an interest that may affect impartiality. It is for item 12.13, Surrender Surf Lifesaving Redevelopment Project. It's that I am a vice patron of Surf Lifesaving WA, not the individual clubs. A further interest declaration from Councillor Count, it's for item 12.13, Surrender Surf Lifesaving Redevelopment. It's an interest that may affect impartiality as some of the members of the club are known to Councillor Count. A further interest from Councillor Fishwick for item 12.13, also the Sorrento Surf Lifesaving Redevelopment Project. It's that Councillor Fishwick is a vice patron of the Sorrento Surf Lifesaving Club and a senior assessor for Surf Lifesaving WA. Also, an interest has been declared by Councillor Vinciulo for item 12.13, the same item. It's that Councillor Vinciulo is a vice patron of the Sorrento Surf Lifesaving Club. We then have an interest that may affect impartiality from the Director of Corporate Services, Mr. Matt Humphrey. It is for item 12.13, the Surrender Surf Lifesaving Project as well. It's that members of the club are known to Mr. Humphrey. Go to the written declarations which have been submitted as well. I have a further interest that may affect impartiality for item 12.9. That's the appointment of independent persons. It's the candidate J may be known to me. It's an interest that may affect impartiality. And that brings us to item 12.2, where Councillor Vinciulo has also declared an interest that may affect impartiality, as some of the staff are known to him. Thank you. Councillors, are there any further interests that need to be declared for tonight's meeting? Thank you. We then move on to noting deputations, which were dealt with at the briefing session held on the 14th of July. That brings us then to public question time. There is a set of procedures relating to public question time, and I request that you follow my direction at all times. You will have an opportunity to ask 2 questions, and your question should be directed to myself as chair and be asked in a polite and respectful manner. So we keep a public register of those who wish to ask public questions, so we will work through the register. And then after that, I'll go then for questions from the gallery. The first person on our list is Mr. Peter Gangemi for item 1213, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name's Peter Gangemi, Sorrento Estate, 160 West Coast Drive, Sorrento. My question is directed at the Mayor, and my question is, the Sorrento Surf Club tenders closed on the 24th of February 26. When were you notified of the $10 million increase in building costs?
Thank you for your question. I think the notification would have occurred through the agenda process after the assessment of the tender was completed, but I'll go to the Acting Director for Infrastructure, if you'd like to provide a full answer of when the council was informed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll direct the question to Mr. Ryan Furtz, Manager, Asset Management.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors were notified of the shortfall in the funding being $10.5 million as part of the...
Sorry, point of order. I asked when the Mayor was notified, not the council members, when the Mayor was aware.
When the Mayor was aware?
Yes.
As part of the informal briefings that we provide as part of the briefing pack, the Mayor was advised approximately 1 week prior to the pack being released to the public.
Sorry, 1 week prior to the
Briefing
annual
pack
budget meeting?
No. Before the briefing report was released to the public.
So 1 week before the briefing papers were released to the public. So the briefing papers were on, if you allow me to calculate the date on my phone. So the date of the briefing session was the 14th of July. I was informed the week before.
Okay, so closed in February, but you weren't notified until July. Yeah. Okay. So,
do you have a second question?
Well, I will hold back on the second question. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you. Then go to Mr. Mike Moore.
Mike Moore, 31 Quarry Ramble in Edgewater. Okay, first question, why is there a commercial component in this development? Or more to the point, what amount of income relative to the total income the city gets each year is it going to get from this commercial component?
Thank you, Mr. Moore. We'll go to, I think, the Manager for Assets or the Acting Director. Yeah.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I can speak to the first part of that question, and there was a council decision that included a commercial component to be considered as part of the development at the site. On the income side, as that is part of the confidential part of this tender, the attachment there that's confidential, I don't think I'm privy to speak to that at this time.
Okay, second question. The city has a problem with beach access already. Pinaroo Point, beach users can hardly use that car park anymore because it's full of patrons for the surf club, for the beach club. Is the beach for the people of the city, or is it just for those who can afford to go to restaurants and the surf clubs? and other clubs that are on the shore? Because it's getting to the stage where normal people can't go to the beach in summer. And how are you going to solve that problem?
Thank you. I'll go to the acting director or the manager for assets, and then I'll probably add a section as well on the end.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The project includes a significant portion of access and inclusion works to ensure accessibility to the foreshore. A large component coming from West Coast Drive through to the foreshore with access roads for service vehicles, emergency vehicles, alongside the coastal footpath improvements that will to keep and encourage usage of the foreshore.
Sorry, you obviously misunderstood my question. My question, and I should have worded it better, relates to the availability of parking for people.
I think, Mr. Moore, you had two parts of your question. So I'll answer, as I said, I'd understood that I'd answer the second half of it. So the first part of your question was, who is the beach for? The beach is for everyone in the district. And when we've been looking at this project, we have been doing assessments of parking ratios in relation to both the Surf Life Club building itself, Life Saving Club building itself, and what would be the impact on parking on the coast. And then there's also been impact and traffic assessments in relation to any commercial component. As far as the council is to weigh up what will be the impacts and whether it will be appropriate to proceed looking at those impact assessments and what are a number of available bays, both for patrons who wish to go to the beach and anyone who wishes to attend the surf club, and then of course thirdly, if there was a commercial use as well. So I hope that provides some clarity. The next person on our list is Ms. Sue North. No, thank you. That brings us to Mr. Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councillors and city staff and the new CEO. My name is Lars Rasmussen. I'm here representing Burns Beach Residents Association as the chairperson. And our question relates to dog beaches. And the context being there's an active petition for dog beach in Burns Beach, northern part going on at the moment. And we note that City Wanneroo have got 3 potential planned dog beaches in the pipeline as well. So the question relates to, can the city and council confirm that they undertake a multi-criteria analysis of the dog beaches and cover as a minimum environmental impacts and adjacency to sensitive areas, flora and fauna protection, heritage sites of various kinds, vehicle movements, including traffic studies, parking constraints and noise impacts, and community impact, line of sight, and separation between residents and a potential beach with a buffer zone, and consider operating hours. And in regards to governance and management, consider the petition in light of the dog management plan that I understand is now imminent for issue, and any impacts to the local planning scheme.
Thank you. The report on that is still being developed by the officers, but I'll go to the Acting Director for Infrastructure if you'd like to comment on those points.
Thank you. Yes, the administration is currently considering the dog management plan, and part of that whole investigation is also to look at future and existing dog beaches along the Joondalup coast. Those criteria that you mentioned in your question is part of the normal assessment for to relocate or to decide where a dog beach can be provided.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a second question?
Yeah, the second question relates to the consultation process. Are we all for a fair and balanced view of whether we should have a dog beach or not? So we would like to see the city adopt a process where there is an element of public consultation on this matter, and we get the wider community to participate in aspects as important as this.
Thank you for your question. We'll go to the Acting Director.
Thank you for the question. I'll have to take it on notice in regards to whether consultation is again needed for Burns Beach, for a dog beach at Burns Beach. I know that for the dog management plan, there was consultation, public consultation. So I'll have to take that question on notice and come back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Then move to the next person on our register, which is Mr. Kevin Pinto.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. Let me first start by thanking the City of Joondalup for building the new marina. It's pretty great up there. I live at 6 Aquarius Ramble in Ocean Reef. And the issue I'm facing there now is there's a lot of pigeons. It's been a year that I've been reaching out to the City of Joondalup in regards to this issue. And I've raised it at multiple levels. And if we are not managing this, the pigeon population correctly, I think it's just going to get worse. I've written several times and I've just been getting a response that this is something that the City of Joondalup doesn't manage. I do realize that, but if the City of Joondalup cannot manage it, then I think we need to get some professional help because this is only going to compound and get worse.
Thank you. I guess I've got to direct you to a question, being public question time. So, do you have a question?
So the question is, what is the City of Joondalup going to do, and how are we going to manage the bird population, the pigeons in my area, which is Ocean Reef, Prendeville area?
Yeah. That's all right. Thank you. And we'll go to the Acting Director for Infrastructure.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. It's a complex matter to when you try to manage birds as they go through the seasons. I'll have to take the question on notice just to see how I can best answer that question.
Okay, I'll have the second question. So the second question is, I don't agree it's complex. There's a problem with the pigeons. We just have to get the professionals to come and manage it.
We'll go to the Acting Director. Maybe we'll...
Thank you. I'll take that question on notice as well. Thank you.
We'll look into, we'll provide a response to the different points.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. The next person on our list is Mrs. Lorraine Schroeder. If you'd like to come forward.
Lorraine Schroeder, 2 Hobie Place, Ocean Reef. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. I have 2 questions in relation to e-ridables at Mirror Park. I refer to your answer on question 3, page 17, which states that e-ridables are permitted to ride on the grassed areas. In January of this year, in response to my email letter to the City, I was informed that council policy does not permit riders of e-scooters, e-bikes to ride on grassed areas in their parks. Could you please inform me which is the case, as there appears now to be a contradiction?
Thank you for your question. We'll go to the Acting Director for Infrastructure again.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the Director for Planning. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We are in the process of erecting signs at Mirror Park to prohibit e-ridables on the grass and in the play areas, and the sign will say that they have to stick to the shared path.
So, thank you, that's encouraging. Riding on grassed areas is permitted by the City. That's a bit ambiguous. Riding, you could be cycle, pedal power, or it could be e-ridables. So it's not, it needs to be more specific, I would say.
Go to the Director again.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I don't have the information here. I'll take that on notice, but the signs are specifically in relation to e-ridables and don't relate to other bikes or scooters that aren't electric.
Okay, all right, I'm satisfied. Thank you, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schroeder. The next person is Miss Teresa Newton, if you'd like to come forward.
Hi everybody, I'm Teresa Newton. I'm the president over at the Joondalup Giants Rugby League Club, and we reside at Admiral Reserve. with our growth over the last 5 years alone, we've gone up by 50.4% in growth. We do children. We're the largest rugby league club in West Australia. We're the largest junior club as well. Our growth has become quite consistent, and it's proving to sort of surpass those numbers with the Perth Bears arriving here for the NRL. At the moment, Admiral Reserve, and I think if you've been down there,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I guess I'm going to have to bring you to a question.
Can I bring you to a question now?
Yeah, because we have statement time next, so.
All right, no problem at all. Our club hasn't even made the top 28 of facilities needing to be upgraded. What do we have to do? How much more do we have to do as a club to get on that 28, to get on the 10 list?
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Before we proceed, I'd like to propose a motion to extend public question time for a further 10 minutes. Could I have a seconder? A seconder by Councillor Count. Could I have all those in favour of the motion? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Sorry about that. We just have to run the meeting with the correct procedures. We'll go to the Acting Director for Infrastructure.
Thank you for the question. The city reviews all the active facilities every 3 years. The last time we did that was in 2023, and at that time, Admiral Park was not in the top 10 priorities. Our next review is scheduled for 2026, 27 for quarter four, and then we'll re-look at that ranking.
So there is an opportunity for us to reach into that top 10 without burning the building down. Just joking.
I understand.
I might have to. Okay, no more questions. We'll wait for statement time. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. That comes to the end of everyone who's registered for a statement. Is there anyone from the public gallery who wishes to ask a question? Sorry. Mr. Sideris at the back.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mitch Sideris, Page Drive, Mullu. Interesting to note that the answer to that question is the one that's been regurgitated probably more times than I can believe. In the answers to probably the same question, there was a table provided of the infrastructure that was ranked poor to very poor. First off, can I have a copy of that done in Excel and sent to me so I can then load it up in a dark mode format, because everybody here should know by now that I have a visual disability.
Thank you, Mr. Sideris. Go to, yep.
Yep, thank you. We can provide that information to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sideris, your second question.
It's interesting to note too that on the brief reading by others, a couple of things that are missing on that infrastructure listing. On my understanding, it's a review of all infrastructure and facilities within the city of Joondalup. A couple of things that I find missing, some of the stuff at Thompson Park, and I think a toilet block at, what was the name of the park? Admiral Park? Why isn't that a complete listing as stated in the report as it was presented to Council in 2023?
Thank you, Mr. Sideris. We'll go to the Director for Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Responding through you, the active reserves that what we class as active reserves are spaces that can be hired by sporting clubs and other community groups for the use for their particular sport or activity. So we don't include places like Thompson Park in that review. There are other reviews that are done of all of the city's infrastructure, all public open spaces, that's done separately. We can provide that information if it's required.
I'm only allowed 2 questions, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sideris. Is there anybody else from the public gallery who wishes to ask a question before we move on? No? All right, thank you. That concludes public question time. We then move to public statement time. Again, there is a set of procedures relating to public statement time, and I request that you follow my direction at all times. You will be able to make a statement for up to 2 minutes, and your statement should be directed to myself as chair and be polite and respectful. No questions or discussion will occur at the end of the statement. So again, we keep a register of those people who are wishing to make public statements. So I will work through those sequentially, and then there'll probably be an opportunity for about 2 more. So the first person on our list is Mr. Peter Ganjami, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been formally advised that the return on investment analysis will be conducted as part of stage 2 of the commercial cafe and restaurant at the Surf Club. As a qualified financial advisor, I'm shocked to hear this wasn't completed as stage 1. In my opinion, this seasonal commercial business is high risk, and I personally wouldn't invest $1 towards this proposed property investment, let alone wasting further ratepayer funds on numerous reports that need to be resubmitted to the WA Planning Commission. On the reports that were submitted were over 4 years old, and also that's not factoring the staff hours that went into the application. As stated by a previous mayor of the city of Joondalup, the commercial cafe restaurant is muddying the waters for the development of the imported Sorrento Surf Club. We, Sorrento Estate, who house over 200 residents directly across the road, confirm that there's an oversupply of cafe restaurants already in the area, let alone the reduced car parking that this will create. We request that the elected council members please vote against the development of the commercial. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for your statement. The next person is Mr. Mike Moore, if you'd like to come forward.
Okay, with the Surf Club, we're supposed to be in an era of greater transparency, but the lack of transparency on what's gone on is palpable. There are 3 components to the Surf Club. There's the cafe restaurant, which is your commercial component. There's public toilets and change rooms, and there's the club. Now, to pretend that the club is a community facility is a nonsense, because it's only available to members of the Surf Club. The toilets have been, public toilets and change rooms have been lumped in with the costs for the club. If anybody's been down there and had a look at the existing toilets, they're disgraceful. I've seen better public toilets in third world countries 40 years ago when I was backpacking around Asia. We need some sort of reason given as to why this project has gone so wrong. It's ridiculous to sort of just say, oh, well, that's it, and not offer any sort of explanation. The second issue I have is access to the beach. The beach is supposed to be for all people. The Mayor just said that 15 minutes ago. And yet we're getting to a situation where there is a lack of parking for people at the beach, car parking. My kids complained this year about how difficult it was to go to the beach, to go for a swim. And I want to know what the city's going to do about it. This development, as it was documented, there is actually less car parking than what there is at the moment. At the original sort of inception of the project, it was supposed to add car parking. Now it's taking car parking away. And the power upgrade is taking another 3 car bays away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your statement. The next person is Ms. Michelle Kwok.
Michelle Kwok, 15 Crawford Walk, Ocean Reef. Good evening, Mayor, Councillor. Sorrento Surf Life Saving Club building is well overdue for an upgrade. When a supposedly $8.85 million project in 2021 overinflated into a $30 million project with a $10.5 million shortfall, it is now not financially viable to proceed. After reviewing past council meeting minutes, this can be navigated by revisiting the refurbished option put forward by city officers in April 2021. The estimated cost tabled at the time was $5.2 million. This option involves partial demolition an extension of the facility on the current site. The rough projected cost from my own calculation should be under $18 million now. The site plan and floor plans have already been drawn up by the same architect, which has adequately addressed the needs of the club, including the public health concern raised by the club. This option is a more cost-effective and sustainable solution capable of meeting the club's needs while reducing the financial burden on ratepayers. In response to the question on the commercial component, I think it will be successful. Just look at the swell, it's always busy. I encourage Council to consider this option and have active discussion with the club to facilitate the progress of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kwok. The next person on our list is Sonia Alec, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you. My name is Sonia Alec and I live in Farrell Way, Padbury. Both of my parents died prematurely as a result of smoking cigarettes. Today, most people accept that smoking causes lung cancer and heart disease, and many are also aware that for decades, tobacco companies funded research to manufacture doubt, attacked scientists and health advocates, and reframed smoking as a matter of personal choice rather than corporate responsibility. What many people don't know is that as early as the 1950s, when my parents' smoking addiction began, some of the same scientists and publicists who downplayed the dangers of smoking were used by fossil fuel companies to sow the seeds of doubt around climate change. Since then, the tobacco and fossil fuel industries have both spent hundreds of millions of dollars disinforming the public and delaying life-saving action. The difference between these industries is the scale of harm they cause. Climate disinformation threatens not just individual bodies, but entire communities and generations. Disinformation thrives in silence and fragmentation. The antidote is a collective voice that names harm and insists that protecting the health and safety of our communities requires confronting the industries most responsible for their erosion. That is the purpose of Councillor Matthew Count's motion number 3. This motion is not only asking for funding for disaster recovery, infrastructure repair, and community resilience related to climate change impacts. It's also asking for that funding to come from the companies who continue to profit from being the biggest contributors to global climate change. I therefore urge the City to support this motion in its entirety and hold fossil fuel companies accountable for the damage they cause in communities across Australia. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement, Mrs. Alec. The next person is Miss Adele Standeven. I do hope I got that correct.
Good evening. My name is Adele Standeven, Chandos Way, Greenwood. The City of Joondalup has the opportunity to support the Make Big Polluters Play campaign by backing a motion that calls for major fossil fuel companies to contribute to the costs of climate change impacts on local communities. As climate-related damage places increasing financial pressure on local governments and ratepayers through rising costs for infrastructure repairs, coastal protection, emergency response and community resilience, it is unfair for these costs to fall solely on residents. The Make Big Polluters Pay initiative seeks to ensure that the corporations whose emissions have significantly contributed to climate change help compensate councils for these growing expenses. Supporting this motion would demonstrate the City of Joondalup's commitment to climate justice, responsible governance and protecting ratepayers from bearing the full financial burden of a crisis that they did not create. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your statement. That then leaves time for about another 2 or 3 statements. Is there anybody from the gallery who wishes to speak? I'll go to Ms. Newton at the front and then I'll go to at the back from the Sorrento Surf Life Saving Club.
Right, put a timer on, I'm a talker, okay.
That's all right, 2 minutes.
Listen, let's just go through some dot points here. We're very excited to be ahead of you guys, thank you so much. Let's start off with no women's change rooms at Admiral Reserve. We have got a premiership winning team. We've won twice in the last 3 years, and again this year, you can bet on it. So just women's change rooms. Our men's are straight after our women's. There's nowhere for them to get changed once they're finished. The toilet block, more like prison block, okay? Thank you for removing those steel seats though, okay? The new plastic ones are much better. Parking, we're pissing our neighbours off hard out, and those guys are so resilient to the amount of people that get to the club on our home games. We have about between 8 and 10 home games every week, and we don't want to piss those neighbours off. They're doing great with us so far, but there are approximately 22 car parks. It's not enough. The homelessness around the area, it's Heathridge. What do I say? Maybe put a sharp spin in the toilets again. That would be great. Rest in peace, Phil, our resident homeless guy, actually passed away not long ago. And also we have a few people living in the toilets currently. So we have to go in there before our juniors go in every single time and clear out their belongings. I also want to do a big shout out to the City of Joondalup though, who are almost right there beside us. Our sports and rec guys, they're helping out as much as they can. You know, we've got a new hot water system, and thank you, Jesus, for that hot water system. And the little things that they're doing for us, we really appreciate. Alrighty, the current change rooms, they're disgusting and full of tinea, so maybe we could come and have a look at those. We're running out of space down in those fields with the Joondalup Giants being the largest junior club in West Australia. We're just increasing so much, and we're asking, like, just perhaps for some lighting, we can extend our game times by having better lighting out there. The roofing and extending pavement out the front, just so we've got some coverage when it's raining. It's a winter sport, I get that. But no, there's nowhere for anybody to stand. We don't want them in our club rooms the entire time because they get muddy, and then you guys have to come and clean them. We actually put in some... No, give me your 2 minutes. Somebody throw me 2 minutes.
That's the 2 minutes, I'm sorry to say, but thank you for your passion and your statement.
Okay, all right, that's Admiral Reserve. My name's Teresa. Holla.
Thank you. And then at the back from the Surrender Surf Life Saving Club.
Good evening, Mayor, elected members and city officers. My name's Rob Doherty, and I'm the president at the Sorrento Surf Life Saving Club. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I thought it'd be remiss of me if I didn't. Obviously, it's been ongoing for a long period of time. We started discussions with the City of Joondalup some 13 years ago around a possible redevelopment of our facility. It's been in social media a lot of late, a lot of negative press around the club and what we want or what we expect, which is not necessarily the case. The club has worked diligently over the years. Some 10 years ago, we imposed a levy on our members to help raise the $1 million that is expected of us to contribute towards this project. In addition to that, $8 million from the state government we sourced. In addition to that, another $2 million from Lotteries West. We fully understand that $10 million just can't be found anywhere, but we are keen to work with the city to ensure that we do get this development eventually over the line. We provide a service to the community. We support, we provide the life-saving patrol from Hillary's Marina down to the Mac Club. 10,000 patrol hours this last season we did. And it's been a long journey for our members, and as I say, I'd like to reiterate that we'd really like to work with the city to ensure we can get this project over the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. There's probably time for one last statement. Is there anybody from the gallery who wishes to make a statement? No. We can't have the same person twice, I'm sorry. I respect the enthusiasm. In that case, we'll declare public statement time closed. We then move on to apologies and leaves of absence. So I haven't received any apologies for tonight, and of course, Councillor May is on an approved leave of absence. There's a request for leave from Councillor Hutton. Is there anybody else who wishes to make a request for leave? No, in that case, could I get a mover for the motion? Moved Councillor Gould and a seconder, seconded Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Gould, do you wish to speak to it? Councillor O'Neill? Is there any dissent on the... No, in that case, we'll go straight to a vote. Could I have all those in favour of the item? By show of hands. All those in favour? Thank you. That carries unanimously. We then move to confirmation of minutes. As everyone would have seen, is that there is an alternate motion which is proposed, which has been circulated before tonight's meeting. It's just a small administrative change to the wording of the minutes. I'm willing to move the motion as written. Could I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Hutton. I don't wish to speak to it. It's just it's just quite a simple administrative change just on the wording to correct some of the wording which was not correctly produced in the minutes. Councillor Hutton? No? Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak to the item? No? In that case, if we can then vote on it, please. If we're voting on the screens. Yep. If you could cast your votes, please. Thank you. I declare the voting closed and the item is carried unanimously. That then brings us to announcements by the presiding member without discussion. So the first item I'd like to raise is the local government blood drive. So I was pleased to be part of the 2026 local government blood drive this year, where the City of Joondalup made the most donations of any local government in Western Australia for the 6th year in a row. The city's workforce and community made 673 plasma and blood donations during the 3-month blood drive, helping to save an estimated 219 lives. I'd also like to acknowledge the Deputy Mayor, Councillor John Raftis, who's been donating since 1987 and has made more than 150 donations. Of course, thank you to everyone who was a part of this incredible result, which makes a real impact in our community. So I encourage everyone to consider donating blood, as it is always needed. Next is the Joondalup Business Awards. The Joondalup Business Awards will be hosted at the Joondalup Resort on the 15th of August, and the City of Joondalup is hosting the awards to recognise excellence, innovation, resilience and entrepreneurship. Local businesses are the backbone of Joondalup's economy, supporting almost 60,000 jobs and generating more than $9 billion each year in economic activity. Their innovation strengthens our community and helps make Joondalup a better place to live and work. So I look forward to attending the awards with some of the elected members and meeting some of our hardworking Joondalup businesses and operators. And lastly, Plastic Free July. The city again was an active participant in Plastic Free July, encouraging residents to reduce how much single-use plastic they use. Not only does Plastic Free July help remove plastic from our environment, but it also reduces the amount of waste sent to landfill, and it's an initiative that assists the whole community. Though July is over, I'd encourage all of our members of our community to continue to think about ways to reduce their single-use plastics. Thank you. That then moves us to identification of matters for which the meeting may be closed to the public. There's one confidential report, which is item 12.4, which is the status of legal actions, and 2 reports with confidential attachments, which is items 12.9.2, which is the appointment of independent persons, and the confidential attachment to item 12.13, the Surrender Surf Life Saving Project. The confidential item for legal actions will be dealt with behind closed doors, but is there any discussion on either of the attachments of the 2 items? Councillor Hill?
Yeah, just seeking clarification of which was the first item. I wasn't sure that the number was correctly quoted.
Item 12.9.
Thank you.
Yep. So I will be holding item 12.9 behind closed doors, just so we can discuss and go through the nominations I've received from members for the different independent persons. Does anybody wish to discuss the Surrender Surf Life Saving attachment behind closed doors? Because if we do, we'll have to hold the whole item confidential. No? Good. Thank you. In that case, we'll just move the order of business. So I've got a motion there. Yep. Thank you. Could I get a mover for the motion to change the order of business? Moved Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Mercer. Councillor O'Neill, do you wish to speak to it? Councillor Mercer? No? Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak to the item? In that case, we'll just vote straight on the item, please. Thank you, councillors. I declare the item carried. And for members of the public, that's just so that we don't have to move the public out of the gallery and then bring them back in through the meeting. That way we're just moving all the confidential items to the end of tonight's meeting. There are 3 petitions on the council agenda for tonight's meeting. The first petition is requesting council to protect the lawn and footpath along Maryvale Way in front of Greenwood Primary School. The petition has received 39 signatures. The second petition is requesting council to reinstate the 7 p.m. closing time at Duncraig, Whitford and Woodvale Public Libraries. It has received 872 signatures. It's also worth noting that that matter has already been concluded and the timing has already been reinstated. Then there's a further petition for requesting council to cease ongoing use of glyphosate in public spaces in the City of Joondalup. That has received 484 signatures. Are there any other petitions for tonight? No. In that case, could I get a mover to receive the petitions? Moved Councillor O'Neill. I'm willing to second. Councillor O'Neill, do you wish to speak to the item? I don't. Does anybody else wish to speak to the item? Thank you. If we could just vote on the motion, please. Councillor Chester, you haven't voted. Thank you, Councillor. I declare the voting closed and the item is carried. That then brings us to the reports section of tonight's agenda. As is our usual practice, I'll just go around the room and I'll ask if there is any items which members wish to extract. Of course, noting that there's been a couple of alternates which have been circulated. So I've got an alternate for item 1213, but I'll go through the room, go around the room anti-clockwise. So starting with you, Deputy Mayor.
Nothing tonight. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Fishwick?
None, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
O'Neill?
Nothing, thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Chester?
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
1213, please.
Thank you. And Councillor Count?
It's the same, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pizzey?
None for me, thank you.
Councillor Gould?
12.2, please.
Thank you. Councillor Mercer?
Same as Councillor Gould, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hutton?
Yeah, 12.8.
Thank you. And Councillor Hill?
Actually, nothing from me, Mr. Mayor, but if you did intend to extract 12.10, I would appreciate the opportunity as presiding member of the Chalmart Committee Reference Group to move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Sure. That's all right. I'll just go through the interest declarations as well. We will need to withdraw. So I will withdraw item 12.1 as Councillor O'Neill has a financial interest. Item 12.9 I will be withdrawing. Item 12.10 I'll ask Councillor Hill, as he's already indicated. I have an alternate for 12.13, which makes small changes, which I'll withdraw. And of course, there's the three motions of which notice has been given. In that case, that brings us to item 12.1 as the first item on tonight's agenda. I'm willing to move the officer's recommendation. Councillor O'Neill, if you could leave the room. Could I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mercer. I don't wish to speak to the item. This just is procedurally, as a member has declared an interest, we then have to move the item separate from the en bloc recommendation. Councillor Mercer. Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak to the item? Thank you. If we could then move to a vote on the motion, please. Thank you. I declare the voting closed and the item is carried unanimously. That then brings us for item 12.2. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be supporting the administration's recommendation, and I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the director and her team. They've taken lots of time.
Before we proceed, could I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Mercer. Thank you. Councillor Gould, you may proceed.
I just went straight into it, didn't I? Okay. So, yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank the director and her team who've taken time to answer all my questions through this process. I do appreciate the assistance they've provided in helping me understand the planning issues that are involved. So, having carefully considered the officer's report, the revised proposal and the community's submissions, I'm satisfied that the amended proposal does not overcome the concerns that led to Council's original decision to refuse the application. For me, this comes back to protecting the amenity of the people who call this area home. Good planning should produce additions to existing development that are compatible with their surroundings, rather than relying on ongoing operational controls or behavioural management measures to make those additions acceptable. The report also concludes that concerns regarding residential amenity and parking remain, and I agree with that assessment. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting the recommendation, and I encourage others to as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Mayor. When this application was previously considered by Council, I expressed concerns regarding the proposed storage area. I appreciate that those concerns have since been addressed through the amended recommendation before us tonight. On that basis, I am satisfied that the proposal now represents an appropriate planning outcome, and I'm pleased to support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mercer. Does anybody else wish to speak to the item? Thank you. I will just say something very briefly. To add to the comments of Councillor Gould, I agree that this item that has now been referred back to us from the State Administrative Tribunal for us to reconsider our prior decision. Looking at the proposal still as a whole, it still, in my opinion, does not meet the objectives of the structure plan. It still does not overcome the real impacts which are likely to result from an approval to this application, particularly the nearby adjacent residents and the impact on them, both in terms of noise, the storage area itself, and I can't see how, through what has been proposed at this time, that those obstacles can be overcome. I think the officers have put together a strong report which outlines the concerns, and I encourage everyone to support the motion. Councillor Gould, would you like to close?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
If we can then move to a vote, please. Thank you. I declare the item, the voting closed, and the item is carried unanimously. We then move to item 12.8, Councillor Hutton. At the briefing session, there were two councillors which indicated they wished to be the voting delegates. Are you still looking to move those two names, which was Councillor Fishwick and Councillor Count?
Sorry. Yeah, I was happy to open it to the floor. I wasn't sure if there was any additional nominations.
Yeah, so at the briefing session, we had Councillor Fishwick and Count as said the voting, and we're still missing two proxy delegates. Does anybody wish to fill in for the proxy delegates? Councillor Pizzey?
Yeah, I'm happy to be a proxy delegate.
And does anyone wish to be the second proxy delegate? Councillor Vinciulo? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yep, Councillor Vinciulo. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see you there, Councillor Mercer. Yep, and we just have Councillor Vinciulo and Councillor Pizzey as the two proxy voting delegates, please. Thank you. And Councillor Hutton, you happy with moving that motion?
Yeah, I'm happy to move it back. I did just want to check that there was no one else interested in nominating for the positions.
Is there any other interest? It appears not.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to move the motion.
Happy to move. Could I get a seconder? Councillor Count, thank you. Councillor Hutton, would you like to speak to it?
I'll speak briefly. Obviously, there's the opportunity at the WILG conference to represent the city's position on these issues. I obviously just encourage whoever represents the city to represent the views of the city and not their own personal views. So I'd encourage all the delegates to consider that as they go to the conference.
Thank you. Councillor Fishwick? Oh, sorry, not Councillor Fishwick. Councillor Count as the seconder.
No, basically, I agree with that. Of course, represent the city in its premise. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the item? Thank you. I guess we'll then move to a vote on the item if that's okay. The voting's closed and the item is carried unanimously. We then move to item 12.10, the alternative coastal adaptation options. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, and I'm willing to second. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you. Very briefly, I'll just touch on this. I'd just like to commend the work of the city officers involved in this work, and also the technical steering group and the Charm Up Community Reference Group, who've also been considering this information. So I commend it to council for noting. I would just like to ask a question, if I may, based on something that was discussed at the Charm Up Community Reference Group last week. That question to the city officer is, in the previous Charm Up version, we were asked to cover a time period of up to 99 years, and my recollection from the meeting the other day was that the state government is now going to be mandating, I think, 25 years, 50 years and 100 years. I'm just seeking some confirmation of that, please. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the acting director. Sorry, not the acting director, the director for governance and the relevant manager.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Just to clarify, the time period for the Charm App remains the same. It is a 100-year period. The timeframes that were discussed at the Community Reference Group relate to the Charm App hazard assessment, which would be the present day 25 years, 50 years and 100 years. So that is the same timeframes as the previous Charm App.
Okay, could I just ask a second question, if I may, through you, Mr Mayor, just to clarify whether those 25 and 50-year increments are set by the city or by state government? I'm a little unclear. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. That is in alignment with the state guidelines for developing a Charm App.
Okay, thank you. Nothing to add. Just commend council to vote in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. To speak briefly as the seconder, I'd like to first thank the officers for preparing this report and, of course, commissioning, of course, the report which has now been produced by Griffith University. Back in December 2023, there was a large change in direction about how we were dealing with our Charm App, and now having the Charm App reference group and the body of work that's now being moved, that's being done to progress towards the preparation of a new Charm App. It's not a quick process, but I think it's a process that I hope our community can have confidence in, that we are making both substantive steps in the right direction, but also making sure that it's evidence-based and has appropriate research that's gone into managing erosion at each of the locations within our city. I think some of the key takeouts from this, which will be used to inform the further coastal planning for each of the locations in the city, is that what has been shown here, especially on pages 83 and 84 of the agenda, and the ranking aligns consistently with the community surveys which have been done about the preferences the community has for our coastline. Our community has said repeatedly that they want to see soft responses to coastal erosion issues, not hard infrastructure, and looking at what are the most effective options. I think it's quite clear looking at this that soft options have ranked highly as being the best ways of managing coastal erosion. I think just highlighting too is that rock groins, which were a feature of the previous consideration, has ranked 12, having an overall score of 10, which is quite far down the list, down the bottom. And of course, further down as well is multi-purpose artificial reefs. There's been a lot of discussion around whether an artificial surf reef could also perform a secondary function of managing coastal erosion. The evidence which we've received both in this report and also the previous report by Blue Coast seems to indicate that that those measures are fairly uncertain as far as the measurable impact on the shoreline, and may not be the best way of managing coastal erosion. And I think it's good that we now have an evidence base to make that judgment on, both this report and the previous Blue Coast report too. I'd encourage everyone to support this item, and I think it's a good step towards us formalising a Charm App into the future. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to comment on the item? No, Councillor Hill, do you wish to close?
Yes, thanks. I'll just close by commenting that I look forward to the opinions of the technical experts throughout this process going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. If we could then vote on the item, please. Thank you. The voting is closed and the item is carried unanimously. We then move to item 12.13, which is the Sorrento Surf Life Saving redevelopment. And then I have an alternate which was circulated later this afternoon. Thank you. And if we could just go down to items 9 and 10, just to show the difference. Yep, there we go. Could I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Vinciulo. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Just to speak to the item. This project represents a significant undertaking for the city. It is a project which has been identified for a number of years based on community need, seeing the definite need of the Sorrento Surf Lifesaving Club and the need for replacing facilities which are now many decades old, but not just the Sorrento Surf Lifesaving facility itself, but also the community change rooms and toilet block, which have been quite aged and are now in a poor condition. There's been a lot of commentary around this project over the years, and one of the things that's caused, in my opinion, the timelines on this to change over the years is that the changes in scope and also location is that when this was first proposed, it was proposed roughly on the site of the existing Surf Life Club Saving facility or nearby. By becoming located into the coastal reserve and the splitting of the facility into 3 separate buildings with 3 separate uses, so splitting it instead of it being one facility, which was originally considered, into 3, being the commercial facility, the community change rooms and toilets, and then the facility itself, has multiplied the cost of this project significantly. Each of those individual buildings themselves require services that are provided to them. They require separate site preparations, stabilisation, and works for them all to be done. In particular, too, moving the building from where it sits further back and closer into the coastal reserve has also increased the cost of this project dramatically. By placing it into the grassed area, it has resulted in a large amount of civil works as well, which will need to be completed if we were to proceed. As everyone is well aware, has been reported publicly, is that there is now a funding shortfall of 10.5 million. At this stage, looking at the city's finances, the available funding that the city has through its different reserves, it's not possible for the city to fund that shortfall. At this time, what's then being proposed by the officers, and I think it is the correct direction for this project, to deliver a club for the community, sorry, a club rooms for the community, and also make sure that we provide appropriate changing facilities and toilet facilities for the community. And so this motion here goes to, firstly in part 6, revoking a number of the design parameters which were placed as constraints onto the project. Those constraints have caused, as I said earlier, the cost of this project to increase significantly. As part of this as well, if we then proceed with the officer's recommendation, it also gives the opportunity for the administration here to look at a redesign of the facilities to deliver it within the available budget. The $10.5 million shortfall, as I said, is not financially affordable for the local government. It means the total project, looking at the project as a whole, then would sit around $30.5 million, which is something that I think as a community, most community members who've spoken to me about this project feel that that is far too much to be raising, that is far too much to spend on a redevelopment project. So looking at this is that part of the officer's recommendation in part 9 is us looking at redesigning the facilities, so the toilet block, this clubroom facilities, and the commercial element to fit within the available budget that the city has. I can't see another way for us to move forward in delivering this project. Additionally, what I've added as a point 10 into this motion is to say that we want to work with the Sorrento Surf Lifesaving Club to deliver this project. This motion is not about us stopping the project, but it's about us trying to find a pathway that is both affordable and deliverable. So making sure that we can have a facility which the community is proud of, the club is proud of, and that the council can actually move forward with this project. So I'd encourage everyone to support this motion. I know there's also been questions raised around the commercial elements as well around this and whether those are appropriate. Those were considered at an earlier stage in this, about a way of the city trying to make sure that there is, that these projects also help fund themselves rather than always placing those burdens onto ratepayers. If the council decides to go ahead with the commercial elements, that is a discussion we can have, I think, at a further time into the future. This doesn't lock us into a commercial building, this decision. This is saying, let's redesign and let's get it correct. One of the things that does need to weigh up, which I responded in a public question, is that the beach is for the community as a whole, and we do need to be conscious about what are the parking impacts and uses that do occur on our coastal sites. So that is something which we would be actively looking at through this process. I'll stop there and go to Councillor Vinciulo as the seconder.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I have some questions for the administration before I speak on the item. Is that okay?
Yeah, that should be all right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Just the first one for me. Can the administration explain what evidence supports the conclusion that revoking the current council approvals tonight is more likely to accelerate delivery of the Surf Life Saving Club than retaining those approvals while further delivery options are assessed?
I think we'll go to the manager for assets, but then I've got to deal with something procedurally. Mr. Thoughts?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The best way to answer that is with the city is restricted within those design parameters and the prior council decisions on the design and the project that has been put forward. So we cannot actually progress with any alternate designs and be able to present to the council without those prior decisions being revoked, as that is what we are bound to provide.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, before we proceed, just a matter of procedure, I need to have a show of hands of 5 members who need to just show by show of hands that they're willing to consider the item, given this item deals with a revocation by absolute majority. So because the recommendation itself with items 6, 7 and 8 say by absolute majority revokes, it's a requirement that we then have a third of the council's support hearing the motion before we proceed. So could I just get a show of hands of 5 members, if that's all right? Who are willing? Yes? And I'll just call those out for the record. That's Councillor Gould, Mercer, Hutton, myself, the Deputy Mayor, and Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Chester. Thank you. Councillor Vinciulo, you may proceed.
Thank you. Okay, second question is, given the tender validity expires on the 31st of August, what procurement, financial and delivery implications will arise if Council seeks further analysis before determining whether to proceed with the current pathway of redesign?
Go to the manager for assets again.
Sorry, and thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Within if to go down a redesign path would require us to go back to tender. The current tender is for the very specified scope of works, and if we were to significantly change those specifications that were released, that tender would no longer be valid.
Okay, so if Council revokes the previous approvals tonight, what work, approvals, procurement value, consultant investment or project development undertaken over recent years would effectively be abandoned or require recommencement?
Mr. Thoughts?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. It's not that they would need to be abandoned. Items would be able to be reused where they do fit in with the redesign of the project. So the city will definitely look to reuse any analysis or survey works that were undertaken, but the actual tender itself, if that would not be able to be proceeded with if the actual redesign was significantly different than what was already put out in that package.
Thank you. Just 2 more. What confidence does the administration have that a redesign project can be delivered within the current available funding envelope, and what evidence supports that confidence?
Go to the manager again.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess once you're given the amount of money to work within, we will work within that amount of money. While the project had originally been decided on in prior years, that was on an outcome, not necessarily an amount of money to be targeted. The scope was very clear, the outcomes to be achieved were very clear, but there was no clarity, I guess, at that time on what the target numbers were set aside to be. What we were proposing is that we redesign towards the available funding. What that would be at this time is obviously that $10.5 million less than what we're actually got at the moment in the tender package.
You can see, okay. Last one, and then I'll speak on the item. Can the administration explain why council is being asked to progress a commercial operator procurement process before council has determined whether the redevelopment pathway design and scope of the project itself will change?
Go to the manager again.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So with the stage 2 procurement process for the EOI, as part of that EOI that was released, it was made clear to the various submitters that the project to construct for the commercial building was subject to further council decision on the overall project, as the commercial building was to be built on what would be the vacant site for the club rooms as part of that scope. So what the going to stage 2 now does allow us to continue with the couple of proponents that had passed through the qualitative criteria to gauge whether they were still interested in what would be a future commercial opportunity at the site, subject to that redesign process obviously now coming into play. So that would change necessarily the scale of the commercial operation. It could change that, but we're able to assess whether there is still interest in going forward with that. Otherwise, we could cancel this EOI and then hold that off. But what we were asked previously was to have in place a commercial operator prior to the construction of the commercial operator, and that was what was predicated with that stage 2 approach at this time.
Okay, thank you. Look, I'll leave the questions there, and I'm sure my colleagues have plenty more to ask. Look, as one of the elected members for the Southwest Ward, I recognise that tonight we are considering one of the most significant decisions this council has to make in relation to the Sorrento Surf Life Saving Club redevelopment. It is a decision that will have a lasting implication for our community, which is why I believe it deserves careful and considered scrutiny. I'd also like to thank the administration for the responses provided to my questions. They have been helpful in informing my consideration of this item, although there remain several matters that I believe council should weigh carefully before reaching a decision. Like every member of this council, I want to see the Surf Life Saving Club delivered. My comments this evening are not about whether the club should proceed. They are about ensuring that we make the decision that gives it the strongest, clearest, and most achievable pathway to construction. Before anything else, I want to acknowledge what I believe every councillor in this chamber agrees upon. We all want to see a new Sorrento Surf Life Saving Club delivered. We all recognise the extraordinary contribution the club makes to our community. Every summer, it's volunteer patrol on coastline. They respond to emergencies, they train future lifesavers, and they provide a service that protects thousands of residents and visitors each year. The existing facility has served our community well, but it has reached the point where replacement is no longer simply desirable, it is absolutely necessary. That is why this project has always mattered and why it remains the reason we're here tonight. The primary purpose of this project is, and always has been, to deliver a modern, functional and financially responsible Surf Life Saving Club. Everything else should support that objective. Over time, this project has inevitably become more complex. Construction costs have increased, funding challenges have emerged, questions have been raised about procurement, parking, staging, and commercial opportunities. These are all important considerations. But somewhere along the way, I believe this conversation has shifted from how we deliver a Surf Life Saving Club to which process we should follow. Tonight, I believe we need to bring our focus back to the reason this project exists in the first place. This project has also benefited from significant external investment. The state government committed $8 million towards the redevelopment because it recognised the importance of replacing ageing life-saving infrastructure and supporting a vital community organisation. Lottery West committed a further $1.5 million and the club itself committed $1 million towards this project. The level of investment demonstrates confidence in both the importance of this facility and the community it serves. More than 5 years have now passed since that original state funding commitment. That was when it was announced, 5 years ago. Yet construction still has not commenced. That timeline matters, not simply because of the delay itself, but because every year that passes without construction, we see increased costs, it prolongs uncertainty for the club, and places continued pressure on the partnerships that make projects like this possible. Our responsibility now is to restore momentum and to ensure that the decisions we make genuinely move this project towards delivery. That should give everyone a moment to pause, not because blame should be apportioned to any previous council decision, but because major community infrastructure depends on strong partnerships between local government, state government, and federal government. Those partnerships are built on confidence that projects can be delivered responsibly, efficiently, and with clear direction.
Thank you, Councillor Vinciulo. I'll have to ask you to conclude there. The 5 minutes.
Could I ask for an extension, please?
You may ask for an extension. Do you have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Pizzey. All those in favour of an extension? Right, and those against? Against this, Councillor Hutton, Gould and O'Neill. So you have an extension of time. I'll just sort of give you an indication though, Councillor Vinciulo. When you had your questions, I didn't count those as time. So I added an extra 1 minute onto your speaking time previously. That's why, just if anyone's sort of querying why.
I'll do my best to wrap it up as fast as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Vinciulo.
Thank you. We have a collective responsibility to restore momentum and demonstrate that external funding community infrastructure can be delivered. That is why I believe our focus tonight should remain firmly on delivering the Surf Life Saving Club. My concern is not the administration has presented council with options, nor is my concern that a redesign may ultimately prove to be the preferred pathway. If the evidence ultimately demonstrates that redesign provides the strongest, most achievable, most financially responsible pathway to delivering the Surf Life Saving Club, then I will support redesign. However, I do have concerns about the sequence of decisions before us tonight. We are being asked to revoke previous council approvals that have taken years to establish. We're being asked to move away from the current project approvals and commence a redesign pathway. These are strategic and significant decisions. I also acknowledge that there are genuine time pressures associated with the current procurement process, with the tender validity due to expire at the end of August. I understand that delaying a decision may have procurement consequences, and I do not dismiss that reality. However, time pressure should not prevent council from fully understanding the strategic implications of the decision before us tonight. Having carefully considered the report before us, I've not been able to identify a comprehensive comparison of the realistic delivery pathways available. For example, could the current design be delivered through value management? Could stage delivery reduce the funding gap? What are the true costs and time implications of redesign? What procurement value would be lost? What additional consultant work or approvals would be required? And perhaps most importantly, what confidence do we have that a redesign project can be actually delivered within the funding currently available? They are not questions intended to delay the project. In fact, my greatest concern is avoiding further unnecessarily delay. They are the questions intended to ensure we choose a pathway most likely to deliver the Surf Life Saving Club efficiently, responsibly, and with confidence. I also remain concerned that the commercial opportunity has increasingly become intertwined with the delivery of the Surf Life Saving Club itself. In my view, any proposed commercial opportunity should support the Surf Life Saving Club, not determine its delivery. The club is the purpose of the project. Commercial activation may ultimately have merit, but it should follow a clear decision about how we deliver the club itself, rather than becoming part of the critical path delivering it. Ultimately, I believe our community expects one thing above all else. They expect us to deliver the Surf Life Saving Club. Everything else, procurement, redesign, funding models, any future commercial opportunity should support that objective, not compete with it. Colleagues, whatever conclusion each of us ultimately reaches tonight, I encourage us to remain focused on one question above all others. Will the decisions we make this evening give the Sorrento Surf Life Saving Club the strongest, clearest and most achievable pathway to construction? That is the question I have continued to ask myself throughout this entire process. Whatever position each of us ultimately takes tonight, I believe we owe it to the club, our funding partners, our community and our ratepayers to ensure we fully understand the strategic consequences of the decisions before us this evening. Colleagues, our responsibility tonight is not simply to make a decision. Our responsibility is to make the decision that gives the project the greatest likelihood of success, a decision that restores momentum, respects the confidence placed in us by our funding partners, honours the extraordinary contribution of the volunteers of the Sorrento Surf Lifesaving Club, and above all, delivers the modern surf lifesaving club this community has been waiting for, responsibly, transparently, and as quickly as reasonably possible. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Councillor Vinciulo. Does anybody else wish to speak to the item?
Yes.
Yeah. Councillor Count.
Thank you.
Councillor Count, you've got the call.
Yes, thank you. First, a question regarding, in our briefing session we had previously on question 4, we have elected members referred to the council resolution from the meeting held on 28th. Elected members asked the city to confirm if the original option 1 design was fit for purpose and what was the estimated overall cost at the time, and what would be the overall cost for delivering option 1 today. And the response received essentially implied that the new tender price for the community facilities provides an indication of what this would cost in the current market. Is that a fair assessment?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. With the option 1 being the single building at that time, back in 2022, I believe you're referring to, it wouldn't be the current price wouldn't be a fair indicator because the tender submission includes the significant civil works that are required to make sure that that building in that location can function and operate. The original option 1 was a location slightly to the north of the current location, closer to the front of the northern car parks, with less dune impacts that we probably in that location, and closer to the groins. So we couldn't say exactly what that number would be right now without going back and undertaking detailed design, because that was a pre-concept sort of level of documentation to really assess what that project would cost now.
Councillor?
Okay, no, thank you. I'll present a statement. Look, there is no avoiding the fact that this tender result before us is confronting. The current project estimate is substantially above the budget previously presented to Council, leaving a funding shortfall of approximately 10.5 million for the community facilities. We cannot ignore that figure, and I'm not advocating Council simply write a blank cheque. However, I also can't support sending this project back to another open-ended cycle of redesign, reconsideration, and further delay. Council has been considering this redevelopment for years. The decision to build a new facility was solidified in 2021. Council selected a concept in 2022. We then changed the design in 2023, adopted 9 specific parameters, requested further reporting and undertook community consultation. We subsequently appointed architects, funded detailed design and took the project to market. We have now reached the point where the market has told us what the completed design will cost. The recommendation before us does more than pause the project. It revokes the principal design decisions made in 2022 and sends the project back for redesign. In practical terms, it resets a project that has already consumed years of work and approximately 1.3 million in expenditure. There is also no guarantee that redesigning the project will produce the savings we hope for. A further design will cost yet again more money. Construction prices will likely continue to rise, and we may ultimately return to Council with a smaller project that is still significantly more expensive than the original budget. And based on the history of this project, I consider that a very real risk. Major construction projects are akin to a game of hot potato. The state government and the Surf Club started the process with a combined 9 million funding commitment in 2021, and the city chose to participate when it accepted responsibility for delivering the project. We have now held on to that project for 5 years, while the Perth construction market has escalated at breakneck speed. It is therefore no surprise that Council is now dealing with these consequences. The question before us is whether we continue to carry the risk of further escalation, or we transfer the project to the successful tenderer and get it built. Further delay also carries costs beyond that of just financial ones. It restricts the growth and operations of a surf club with approximately 2,200 members, a club that continues to achieve outstanding results at state competition levels despite operating from significantly ageing facilities. More broadly, another reset risks sending a troubling message to the state and federal governments. Why would our state and federal representatives continue committing funding to projects in our city if we demonstrate that we are unable to progress these projects efficiently to construction? I would make this same argument regardless of the type of project, including a project in Heathridge or any other suburb. Once external funding is committed, it is effectively a race against time to reach the market. Had this tender price come in substantially above budget soon after the original funding commitment, Council could reasonably argue that the external contribution was inadequate. But in this case, 5 years have passed. Those who've committed the funding are entitled to be frustrated by the time this has taken to reach this point. And I accept the Council must look after ratepayers and properly test every available saving. But fiscal responsibility is not always achieved merely by delaying a difficult decision. As this project has clearly demonstrated, delay itself has a cost, and in this case, a significant one. Tonight, I believe Council should make a decisive choice that preserves the opportunity to deliver this project, pursue every realistic external funding source and value management option, and establish a clear and time-bound path forward. We should also learn from this experience and ensure future externally funded projects move from commitment to tender far more quickly. After this many years, another open-ended reset is not the adequate outcome. The community deserves certainty of delivery, and Council needs to demonstrate that it can make difficult decisions and see major projects through to completion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fishwick, you are next.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. For me, there's been a lot of questions asked about this project this evening and even earlier on that still remain for me clouded or unanswered. If this project was abandoned at this stage for a redesign, its cost when it comes back to Council in 24 months is most likely to be more than what it is now, given the cost will increase and given the situation in the Middle East, one would expect that materials such as required would increase. So in 2 years, we could have a redesign project that's going to cost 30 million plus more than what it is now. So I really think that there is probably no rush this evening, perhaps, to consider the matter, given that we meet again in August. So perhaps there's a matter, an opportunity here to, I've spoken now so I can't do it, refer the matter back, maybe an opportunity to get some additional funding. And I understand that the State Treasurer has made a comment that she would be open to looking at additional funding should she be approached on such a project. So perhaps there's an opportunity here for the Council to move, or another member to move a procedural motion that we refer this back to the August meeting, given that the tenders don't expire until the 31st of August, would perhaps give an opportunity for the club, the Council, a person to perhaps make contact with the state government to see if there's an opportunity to increase that funding from what it is now to something more that maybe get this project across the line as it stands now with the $30 million cost. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Before we continue, I might ask a question to the administration on this one. The comments from the Treasurer for the state, did they include that the Treasurer was willing to increase funding for this project? Because my recollection was that she said that she was willing to work with the club, which is very different from additional funding. Does the administration have a copy of what the Treasurer actually said? Yeah. I don't know who wishes to take that question. We'll go to the Mr. CEO.
I'm happy to take that question, and the indication from officers is that we've not received that information as clearly as that.
Thank you. Councillor Hill, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thanks. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion under section 10.1A of the meeting procedures that this item be deferred until the August 2026 Ordinary Council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Pizzey. Councillor Hill, you have the floor.
Thank you. I've noted in particular this evening that the ward councillors do not consider they have been provided with adequate information regarding this important agenda item. In my opinion, there have been inconsistencies or disparities with information provided to council regarding cost estimates for the various design options. Responses to questions raised at the previous strategy session, the briefing session, and in subsequent communications have not fully resolved elected member concerns. At the briefing session, I asked questions regarding the previous and current cost estimate for the option 1 design that was endorsed by council in June 2022. The answers received in the briefing pack did not provide a sufficiently detailed response. The response indicated that the cost of delivery of that option 1 today might be around $30 million. Referring to commentary from the Mayor regarding this alternative motion, it was indicated that decisions made subsequent to June 2022, for example, relocation of the building and addition of design parameters, and indeed separation of the commercial facilities, have caused substantial cost increases. That is consistent with my understanding, so I was somewhat surprised that the response in the briefing pack did not indicate that reverting to option 1 would lead to substantial cost savings. The reason that I asked about option 1 is that I was optimistic that it could be delivered at a cost that is much lower than $30 million. Unfortunately, the answer provided did not indicate any cost saving. I don't think that the Ordinary Council meeting this evening provides an appropriate forum for resolution of these important outstanding matters. I would strongly suggest that this matter be discussed further at the next Council strategy session in order that all elected members can have the opportunity to raise any concerns and clarification requests to the city officers so that this Council is well informed prior to making a significant decision on the way forward. I'm not seeking extensive further delays to this project, but I do feel that deferral until August will assist Council in making well-informed decisions, and I do note that tenders are generally valid until the end of August. I urge my fellow councillors to support this deferral motion. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. If we could then vote on the item, please. Councillor Gould. Thank you. I declare the voting closed and the item is carried. So we're to be deferring till next month. Thank you. That then brings us to the next item on tonight's agenda, which is Notice of Motion 1. Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just restarting my computer up. So I'd like to move this
Councillor,
motion.
just before we proceed, we've got the en bloc motions we need to do. If we could get an en bloc motion for items 12.3, 12.5, 6, 7, 11, and 12. If I have those all correct. I'll just check with governance. That's all the items. That's correct. I'm willing to move. Could I get a seconder? Second by Councillor Mercer. I don't wish to speak to it. Councillor Mercer. Any members wish to speak to the item? No. Thank you. In that case, we'll just vote on the item, please. Thank you. And the item is carried. We then move to item 16.1. Councillor Mercer. Do you wish to move your item? Yes?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Could I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Gould. Thank you, Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank Director Humphrey for taking the time to discuss the notice of motion with Councillor Gould and myself prior to submitting the document, and for explaining the city's review process and for providing valuable guidance. This notice of motion is about ensuring that one of our community sporting facilities continues to meet the needs of our growing community. It's not about giving preference to one sporting club over another. Rather, it asks the administration to assess whether the existing infrastructure at Admiral Park remains fit for purpose and capable of meeting both current and future demands. The real question before us tonight is not whether the process exists, because we know it does. It was looked at in 2023. It is a question of whether the circumstances have changed sufficiently since then. We need to review to justify to Council receiving updated information about this important community facility. As councillors, we have responsibility to ensure our community assets continue to serve the people who use them. That means periodically reviewing our facilities, identifying emerging pressures, and planning ahead so infrastructure keeps pace with the needs. Admiral Park is a city-owned community asset, and like all of our community infrastructure, it should be assessed to ensure it continues to meet the needs. It is a well-utilised community sporting facility. One of its principal users, the Joondalup Giants Rugby Club, has been part of our community for almost 40 years and now has more than 800 members across women, men and junior teams. Looking ahead, the introduction of the Perth Bears in 2027 is expected to generate increased interest and participation in rugby across Western Australia. That's something we should welcome, but it also reinforces the importance of understanding whether our existing facilities are capable of meeting future demand. Importantly, this notice of motion is not just about rugby. It's about ensuring Admiral Park as a community asset continues to provide safe, functional and accessible facilities for all current and future users. The report that I'm seeking will provide Council with current information about the condition, capacity and functionality of the existing facilities. It will identify any emerging issues, outline future options and assist Council in making informed decisions through the City's normal capital works planning process. Every one of us want our community facilities to meet the needs of the people who use them. This motion gives Council the opportunity to properly assess Admiral Park, understand any emerging pressures and consider its future through the City's normal planning process. I believe that's a reasonable and responsible course of action, and I ask you all to support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gould is the seconder.
Yes, thank you. I think this is a sensible and responsible request. I'll be supporting the motion. We're not asking Council to approve any upgrade tonight. It's simply asking us, the administration, to assess and see where Admiral Park sits. As importantly, we heard tonight from the club, it gives the club a greater clarity about the future opportunities, allowing them time to plan as well when we can see where this facility sits within the greater picture of what needs done. So seeking grant funding for them and undertaking fundraising themselves, so should upgrades ultimately be supported. Yeah, so it's a good decision and we need to get some good information. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anybody else wish to speak to the item? Councillor Chester.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I acknowledge Councillor Mercer's comments as being quite valid. However, I would like to point out that the City's own active reserve and community facility review, which is done every 3 years, as pointed out by the Director, there are, in my ward, in fact, 6 facilities, being the first developed facilities are a lot older than those in the north. There are 6 facilities that indeed have a higher priority than Admiral Park. So I think I'm just trying to make that point, that there are facilities that do have a higher priority. So it might be difficult for me to support it enthusiastically. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hill.
Yes, thanks. Question, if I may, through you, Mr Mayor. Could I just check, first of all, what the cost would be for the administration to prepare a report on this matter? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Director Parry. Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Responding through yourself, the City already has extensive photos and condition reports on the facility. I believe it'd be able to be produced administratively without any particular cost burden. There wouldn't be a requirement for consultants or any external resources.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you. I do have a follow-up question. Just seeking clarification on an earlier response to a question from a member of the public. Could I just clarify the schedule for the next iteration of reporting on the status of these facilities and the top 10, for example? Thank you.
I'll go to Director Humphrey again.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the review would ordinarily be conducted this financial year. However, we are reducing staff in that area through normal staff attrition, so it would likely be the next financial year before that review would be completed.
Thank you. Councillor?
Yes, thank you. And one final question, if I may, through you, Mr Mayor, just to clarify then, given the nature of this notice of motion, would it be the case that the staff undertaking a review would take note of the items raised in this notice of motion in any case in doing an assessment for this financial year? Thank you.
Thank you. Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, they would. However, I think it's important to point out that in doing these kinds of reviews, the first step is to make contact with the clubs and assess changes in club structure, club growth, what their demands are for those facilities. That is fed into the review for all of the city's active facilities.
Thank you, and I'll just speak briefly on the subject. So, of course, as a councillor, I'm very supportive of sporting clubs and other clubs in our communities that make use of our facilities and that have the privilege of getting to use our facilities, which is not all clubs enjoy, I have to say. I'm comfortable with the way that the city manages these processes. I think it's important that we retain fairness and transparency, and I don't want to get into a situation where elected members feel that they need to be in response, bringing forward notices of motion about any particular club in their ward. Having said that, I'm comfortable supporting this notice of motion on the basis that it's asking for a report and on the basis of the response from the Director of Corporate Services that there is no significant cost in preparing a report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hutton?
Yeah, thank you. Just in regards to the officer's comment, which basically flags that the review of this project is scheduled for 26-27, so effectively it's coming up very soon. I want to just check, would this report provide any additional information than what would already be provided as per that report, which will be getting prepared later this financial year?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the report itself wouldn't, the officers wouldn't use any additional information. They would have this information in any case. However, we don't normally provide that level of detail in the reports. It's normally just a ranking and an estimated cost of what the facility upgrades would be. So this would provide a higher level of detail if this report was provided.
Councillor? Oh, sorry, the CEO wishes to add to that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's important just to add to that. So this report would be specific to this club. What it wouldn't provide you is the context of where it sits in any updated ranking against all of the other clubs.
Councillor? Yep.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Pizzey.
Sorry,
Yeah.
are we going? I didn't have a chance to speak to it yet.
Yeah, that's all right. Sorry, I was thinking Councillor Hutton was indicating that he was going to continue again, but I missed that he wasn't. Councillor Pizzey.
Okay, thank you. A question, first of all. So we've heard tonight the Joondalup Giants Rugby Club, they give a very convincing statement on the requirements of the club at the present. When preparing the report to council, will the city be including a report of the other clubs' requirements that are in similar places as Admiral Park on the list to ensure that, you know, we can make a good comparison of what clubs really need what and when?
Director?
Through Mr Mayor, just following on from the CEO's answer to the previous questions, the report would be specific to this site. So we wouldn't, in providing a very specific report, we wouldn't then go and provide that information for every facility. In generally answering that comment though, that question, the situation at Admiral Park is not unique. There are a number of facilities built through the city that were built in the 1970s and 80s that do not have change rooms for both genders. They don't have universally accessible change rooms and those sorts of things because at the time the standards simply didn't require it. So there are a number of facilities that have similar issues that would require female change rooms to be added specifically to facilities, and that's quite consistent as the participation rate of females in traditionally male-dominated sports has increased, which is a good thing. But no, we wouldn't actually provide detail on every other facility in this report. It would be contained to Admiral Park.
Councillor?
How many facilities require the adding of change rooms, particularly for female participation in the City of Joondalup? Do we know that?
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't off the top of my head. I believe it is close to a dozen. We have focused the attention in the last 5 to 6 years on sports that have had a higher take-up of female participation. Specifically in that group, you will find soccer is a fairly large uptake, and AFL and cricket as well. However, it is something that will flow through to all of our facilities over the next 5 to 10 years.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you to Ms Newton for her exuberance this evening as well. I think this is a very good notice of motion. I think there's no harm in looking at things like this. I will say that it is important when somebody in our community comes to a councillor and asks them to help with putting something together that the city can look at. I think that's mainly one of our primary roles, being there as community appointed members is. So I thank Councillor Mercer for bringing this to us. In terms of the change rooms and things, look, if my girls were doing rugby there, if they were playing rugby there, I'd be quite stunned if I was to find that there was no change rooms for the ladies there. So these are things that we're obviously got to look at. I'm glad that it's been brought to the attention of the council now, and we can get, as Director Humphrey said, a more detailed look at this. Rather than just a ranking, we can actually look at the scope of what's needed, and as a council as a whole, we can decide on what's required past that point and help this club to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else wish to speak? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Support the motion. It's coming up. It's requesting a report. I think it's raised some issues and brought awareness to the situation and the fact that we've had a club come and present on the matter. So I have no issue with that, and I think it's good that these things get raised to the council so we have that awareness. It also gives us a heads up in terms of what the challenges that we face in terms of funding, and that is facilities across the entire city. So it's pleasing to have these things raised, and the councillors for raising it and representing their areas and the residents there. It's good to see. So from my point of view, great to see. The challenge I see is obviously that long list of facilities across the city that need work on them. The report from 2023, could we clarify when that was presented to council or raised with council?
Thank you. Director Humphrey?
Through Mr Mayor, I don't recall the report from 2023 coming specifically to council for noting. It would typically be raised as a part of the budget setting process, so it would have come through in workshop 1 or workshop 4 of 2023.
Deputy Mayor?
Could that please be confirmed it was presented, the full list in that budget workshop? We've taken it on notice, that's fine.
Director?
Through Mr Mayor, happy to take that on notice, provide the date it was provided, and for council's information, provide the last 2 lists, because it would have been one done in 2020 as well.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, because I'm trying to get my head around the 3-year cycle and 3 year of doing the work when it actually gets presented, because then there's a time of preparation, reviewing, and so I don't want it, if it's the work's going to be undertaken late in this financial year, then it may not get presented to us until the end of next year or potentially early the following year. So that's why I want to have some clarity around that we have set timelines that we keep with these matters.
Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't believe the review would be completed in time for consideration of the next Capital Works program update. It would be the following one.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Yep. So from my point of view, great to see this thing raised. I'd be interested to see the report, and it is just asking for a report. It's not asking to be lifted up against other items that may be considered as part of the review and whatever the situation changes. So from our point of view, any information that helps us as a council make better decisions and a more timely decision about how we need to maintain our facilities will be a good outcome. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers for the item? Councillor Hutton?
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly, firstly, obviously thanks to Councillor Mercer for bringing this forward. I'm obviously someone who's a strong supporter of local community groups and sporting organisations, and you know, it's obviously great to see more investment in our local sporting clubs and community groups. I think in dealing with this motion, we just need to provide the context of the world that we live in, the situations that we face. I think it's important that we have a proper process, and I would hate to see in the future every councillor around the table bring a very, very similar motion for the community facilities in their wards. I personally have played in sporting grounds in the city of Joondalup, which are significantly worse in terms of the provision. So for me, the real question is what is it in this instance that makes Admiral Park special and unique? And that's what I'm really trying to understand here. Now, I am happy to support this proposal, and I think I'm kind of going out on a limb here, because for me there has to be a unique reason why we're singling out a specific facility. And the only reason I can see here is the Perth Bears announcement. So on that, on that note, I'm happy to support this, but I just encourage council to approach this with caution, because we have a number of facilities that could go through this exact same process. What I would like to see, and I know the Deputy Mayor mentioned that, I would like to see as much information as possible provided on all of our facilities on a regular basis, so that we can make continued informed decisions. But yes, happy to support this, but I think as a council we just have to consider, do we want to be dealing with this similar notice of motion on a monthly basis for different facilities, or do we want to improve the ongoing process? And I think we can do this now, but I think we really need to look at improving the ongoing process so that this isn't required to happen every time we want to see an upgrade of a facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody? Councillor Pizzey?
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick comment. I just wanted to thank the club for coming and engaging in such an enthusiastic way with the council. It's really appreciated, uplifted the meeting. Yeah, it was great. And you know, sport is such a big thing in the city of Joondalup. All of my kids have played. I've also played in sport and involved in clubs around the area. And, you know, I am supportive of obviously the interaction you've had with your local councillors to bring this issue forward. And I think it's highlighting a bigger issue here, that each councillor has really suggested that they've got the same issues in their ward. And so maybe we need to look at, as a city moving forward, how we're going to fast forward or fast track maybe the building requirements in some of these spaces, especially since we've got an increase of women wanting to participate in sport, and that has really changed in the last, 5 to 6 years. So yes, I'm supportive of this, and maybe we need to review the requirements in our sporting facilities and how we can go about achieving those changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak to that? Deputy Mayor, is it a
question?
Yep, question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, just noting the list of buildings that were provided as responses to one of the public questions. Just curious as to how Warwick Stadium appears so high up the list when I understand the building's not exceptionally old. Similarly, Mullaloo Surf Lifesaving Club rooms, I believe they were done not too long ago. I'm just curious as to how that impacts why they're still on there.
Thank you. We'll take the question, but I think we're probably straying a bit far of relevance on the motion. Director Humphrey?
Through Mr Mayor, I will take the question. I noticed to provide details in the packs, but essentially, if I recall correctly, the Warwick Stadium issues were structural issues that needed to be remedied. So water work, ingress works, I'm being reminded to make sure that the structure of the facility remained at the optimal level. And the Mullaloo Surf Club, again, there was specific works that were needed. We don't normally take into account the financial position of the clubs when we're preparing the list, but it may be something the city would look at when the works are being scheduled, whether or not a co-contribution could be received from those particular bodies.
Deputy Mayor, is that? Yep, thank you. Any final speakers to the motion? Just briefly from myself, then I'll ask Councillor Mercer to close. Look, thank you, Councillor Mercer, thank you for bringing this motion forward. I think it's important to identify the different community facilities around the district where there's pressure on them, and especially when we see growing clubs and increased participation of women in sport. And I'd also like to thank the club members and some of the users who are all here tonight. Thank you for your passionate presentations earlier today. So I'm sorry I had to cut you off, but I'm sure there'll be lots of opportunities to try and engage as we discuss this. I think this motion as well raises an important question for the council, not just in relation to this facility, but thinking about the district as a whole. And I do acknowledge that the administration in their comment does talk about the review which is scheduled in 26-27, and then looking at that work about what is the prioritisation of different facilities around the district. And I think it's important that we always, with all the decisions that we make here, that we look at the district as a whole, and we also consider our finances as an organisation as a whole. And I think it's important to reflect on that the last couple of years is that the asset renewal reserve that the city has is more or less depleted to zero. The strategic asset reserve is more or less completely depleted as well. So when we look at making commitments and funding for particular projects, when we have a project that becomes very expensive in comparison to the city's rates revenue, that we do review of those projects and we ensure that we're making sure those projects are both deliverable and affordable. And that's the approach we took with Burns Beach when we had the cafe. It came back on tender, or at least not on tender when we did the further assessment of the costs, around 13 million. We rescoped it and we delivered something at 6, which actually had a better community outcome, better community spaces. And I think that's something, even for our larger projects, we need to take the same sort of approach. With Heathridge, we've looked at rescoping elements of that. And again, to talk about some of the items which have been on tonight's agenda, 30 million for the Sorrento Surf Life Saving Club. Yes, we could go ahead and commit to that, but what does that cost our community? Does it cost and affect the people who are in these smaller facilities around the districts, like the local rugby league clubs, like the local sporting groups who are in the smaller facilities? Do they end up missing out if we make large commitments to one redevelopment project and one club and one decision? These are the facilities I think are very important and key facilities for the community because they're used by everyone. They're not exclusive leases, they're used by everyone across the whole district, and in particular clubs. And I think we need to make sure that we look after all of these groups across the city. And I know there's a list of assets which have been provided in response to a public question. And, there are similar concerns across the district about different areas. And it does concern me if we overspend in what I would consider an overspend in some areas, and because it means others miss out. And I think we need to look at our whole community in the face, not just looking at certain areas, certain clubs, and make those decisions wisely for our community. To put, for example, the shortfall that's on Sorrento, 10.5 million, that's bigger than the rates increase which our whole community has been subject to. Our whole community had a 6.5% rate increase. That 10.5 million is actually bigger than the rate increase which we levied on 60,000 properties and affecting 160,000 residents. So we need to always put these decisions in context and make sure that we're supporting all the groups across the district, the local rugby clubs, the local soccer clubs. And so I think what Councillor Mercer has highlighted is, I think, an important perspective that I think as a council we need to consider. We need to look at everyone as a whole and make sure that we're delivering for the community as a whole. Councillor Mercer, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I was elected as a councillor, my main goal was to advocate for my community, and that's what this motion is all about. I want to thank Adam and Jack Bullard for contacting me and relentlessly contacting me to go down to meet with them and have a look at the facilities. A comment was made tonight that the toilets there were worse than a prison. I've been a prison officer and I can agree to that. I've seen both prison toilets and I've seen the toilets at Admiral Park. And I'm not saying they're any different to any other facility we have around the district. As Councillor Chester said, he's got 6 facilities just in his area. Maybe we need to look further. Maybe we need community groups and sporting organisations to make contact with us so we know what's going on with their facilities, so we can, as a collective, can also advocate for them. Because the simple question is, or the simple statement is, if we don't know, we don't know. So maybe we do need to know these things. And that's why I really think and thank Jack and Adam for bringing this to our attention. And Councillor Hutton here said, why are we bringing this to your attention? As the members of the community said tonight, the club has grown by 50% in the last few years. The facilities no longer meet their needs. I think that's one of the reasons. It's not just because the facilities are getting tired, the club is growing. We should be supporting that. It's the largest rugby team in Perth. However, they're not the only occupier of the facilities, there's others there. They too need to have a facility that works for them. So for that, I just encourage you to vote in favour of this motion. Thank you.
If we could vote on the item, please. Thank you. I declare the voting closed and it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Yes, thanks, through you, Mr Mayor. I've realised that for the notice of motion number 3, which is a late item, in accordance with my annual return, my self-managed super fund does have some shareholdings in some of the companies that are the subject of this notice of motion, so I'd like to declare a financial interest, if I may, for notice of motion number 3.
Okay. So for motion number 3,
from
financial
Councillor
interest, it doesn't identify any businesses. So I don't know if this would qualify as a financial interest under the Act.
Could I seek guidance from governance? Because there are companies which would fall into those categories, but I note that no companies are named. Thank you. Appreciate guidance.
We'll go to Director Parry.
Through you, Mr Mayor, off the top of my head, you would need to anticipate or have an expected benefit, so you would have to have some knowledge with regard to the benefit or disadvantage that may fall upon you as an elected member. I think, as you've specified, Mr Mayor, this is, as there are no companies that are named, it's a very wide net, so I don't believe that a financial interest would need to be declared.
You can declare an impartiality, or you can declare a financial interest if you choose.
I just seek clarification on that last statement from the Director of Governance. I wasn't quite clear whether it was saying it was needed or was not needed. Thank you. The financial interest. Thank you.
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the decision to make an interest is the elected members alone. So I can't provide advice as to whether you should declare an interest or not, but I believe that what needs to be taken into consideration is whether specific companies are referenced, and that has an application to your own personal financial circumstances. In this motion, there are none of those businesses named, and it might be considered to be conjecture with regard to whether there's an interest or not.
Councillor?
From an abundance of caution and noting that the effect of this motion could be to the financial detriment of some of the companies that I do have an indirect shareholding in, I think I ought to declare a financial interest on this item and wish to do so. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Hill. It's a choice of all elected members. We move to notice of motion 2. Councillor Pizzey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In accordance with clauses 9.13 of the meeting procedures relating to withdrawal of motions, I wish to advise that I withdraw notice of motion related to resumption of Maori planning. The officer's comment confirms the city will introduce a high susceptibility species, including Maori, for consideration in 27-28 planning season, which is the outcome myself and residents were seeking. So the motion was substantially achieved its purpose. So I'll continue to take interest in how that is delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We then move to notice of motion 3. Councillor Chester. No?
No, it doesn't need a seconder. I was wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to item 3, are there any other financial interests that anyone wishes to declare or other interests for this item? Thank you. You may leave the room, Councillor Hill. No, in that case, Councillor Count, are you willing to move the motion?
Yes, happy to move.
Thank you. Could I get a seconder? Councillor Chester? Count?
Yes, Look, this motion is simply seeking Council's support to submit a member motion to the 2026 WALGA Annual General Meeting before the submission deadline this week. Last month, the Australian Local Government Association passed a resolution calling for greater Commonwealth support to help local governments respond to the increasing costs of climate adaptation. Among other things, it proposed the establishment of a National Climate Compensation Fund with a dedicated funding mechanism. Whilst this is commendable, it does not imply that WALGA's position is the same. WALGA very recently adopted a strong climate change position, supporting greater funding for local governments. However, it does not advocate a specific funding mechanism and instead requests an additional 1% from general tax revenue. This motion asks WALGA to consider seeking the funds not from taxpayers, but from the very companies that have contributed to the climate problem. Whether members ultimately agree holistically with the proposed motion, this is a worthwhile discussion to be considered at WALGA to determine the position of West Australian local governments. I will add that this motion for submission is also being presented across 7 other West Australian councils this month, and including the support of Joondalup is the best way to advocate for reducing these growing costs for ratepayers. Finally, I would like to note that this motion has been brought to this meeting at short notice because the WALGA submission deadline is the 30th of July, making this our final opportunity to put the matter forward before consideration. I appreciate your support in the submission to WALGA's AGM. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Chester is the seconder.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. The logic involved in this notice of motion is very straightforward. The cost of climate change mitigation, which is considerable, should not fall on the shoulders of local government ratepayers. It should actually rest quite squarely, if you like, on the significant producers of greenhouse gases. So the point of the notice of motion was really to bring that fact to a more prominent stage, namely the Australian Local Government Association and hopefully the federal government in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments on the item? Councillor Pizzi?
Thank you. Look, the state government has legislated that future climate challenges for local governments to mitigate, then it's important that they allocate the funding for this so that it's not falling on the ratepayer, which would also ensure that those mitigations are carried out in meaningful ways with more financial freedom. I'm not 100% on this full motion. I'm not sure about advocating for an introduction on climate pollution levy on coal, oil and gas corporations only. I think that there are many industries that pollute and affect our environment, including some industries that offer alternate energy sources. In saying that, I agree on the intent of this motion that local governments have been delegated to mitigate future climate challenges and that those measures should be supported financially.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further speakers? Was Councillor Hutton, were you indicating earlier? Yep.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, obviously, I will just start on this question of the timeline by what the motion was submitted. Obviously, I would have liked to have had more time to consider it. I do take on board the deadline for the submission. However, this motion was mentioned to councillors at the briefing session, and obviously we only actually got the wording of the motion quite late in the piece. So it was clearly something that's been in the works for a while. By reading the notes of the motion as well, it seems like there's been some coordination happening at a higher level with other local government councillors submitting this to their local governments this month. So I'm not really sure where that coordination's coming from. I do, however, fear that what we are seeing here is in effect the straying of local government responsibility. We're actually seeing a push by activists to weaponise local government and stray us from our core responsibilities. And we all know what our core responsibilities are. I take what's been said about, we have a responsibility to, mitigate the effects of climate change. But what I would encourage us as local government, if we are to do that appropriately, is to take personal responsibility for the things within our power. not to try and dabble in other spaces. These matters here are squarely the role and responsibility of the federal government. We do have mentioned here about, it shouldn't be our local community that pays for the costs of pollution, but who will it that will be paying the costs of higher energy bills? Will it be the local community? Yes, it will be the local community, and that's what we result here. You can levy and tax as much as you want your local industry, but all you do is push it offshore. You move the jobs offshore, the pollution continues, and it happens under less stringent environmental protection laws. This isn't a discussion I wanted to have at a local government council meeting because it's not in our role and purview. If we do want to force ourselves to have these discussions, then you force us to really get into the detail. But for me, yes, I'm strongly against this. I'm strongly against it. One, for it would have been more appropriate to have more time to consider this. I'm strongly against it on a second point, which is that we're really straying here from the core responsibilities of local government, and I fear that there's a push here from activists to actually hijack local government to further their own agenda, and I think that's reflected in the actual notice of motion, which references numerous councils which have this motion moved. And then on the third point, is I don't think this was going to have the desired impact that it seeks. I think the costs are going to be placed on our local communities through higher energy prices, and also through reduced economic activity. We are facing a cost of living crisis at the moment. We're facing an economic crisis. The last thing we want to do is to disadvantage the industry which have powered the backbone of this state. This is a resource state and a resource industry, and this is completely the wrong path to go down. So I oppose it for all those reasons. But for those of you who don't agree with me on the fundamentals of it, I do just ask you to question, is this a role and responsibility? And do we want to be seeing more of this happening at this local government and across the sector? And I think for me the answer is no. Let's get back to basics and let's vote against this notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have much more to add on to this. I totally agree with Councillor Hutton on this. I'm not going to speak much more to it, except I will. I would like to. I'm not supportive of this motion, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will always support advocating for additional funding where our community needs it. Local governments are taking on increasing responsibilities, and it is entirely appropriate that we advocate for funding and support required to meet those responsibilities. However, as a councillor, our role is to represent our community and work constructively with other levels of government and to advocate for funding and support needed to meet its needs. I believe our advocacy is most effective when it remains focused on those outcomes rather than prescribing how another level of government should raise that funding. How that funding is raised is an important public policy question, I agree. But however, as I see that as a matter of federal government, and my role as a councillor is to advocate for the resources our community needs rather than advocating for a particular taxation mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further commentary? Councillor Pizzi?
Yeah, can I just ask a question, please?
Sure.
When we're looking at 2B and 2C, where it talks about adopting Motion 92 as part of WALGA's federal advocacy program, and then 2 talks about actively advocating in partnership with the Australian Local Government Association, and then it goes on further. Does Motion 92 at WALGA, is that a part of advocating for a climate pollution levy on coal, oil and gas corporations? So what I'm asking is, I'll ask that question if you need clarification.
Is that part of Motion 92?
Yeah.
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to reiterate parts of the motion that was submitted to the National General Assembly. The first parts of it were with regard to calling on the federal government to acknowledge the increased costs of climate change, also recognising the inequity of where local governments and communities had to bear the cost, and not being responsible for 75% of the climate pollution generated by, as in the motion, major coal, oil and gas corporations. Importantly, it called on the federal government to establish a parliamentary inquiry into the adequacy of the 2025 National Adaptation Plan, specifically addressing the lack of additional funding for local governments to deliver mandated adaptation responses, and also importantly ensure that that inquiry looked at identifying or examining revenue sources to meet those investment needs. And I think as an example, they included the implementation of taxes or levies on the coal, oil and gas industries aligned with climate damage that their products caused. So it was about establishing, getting the ALGA to lobby the federal government to establish a federal inquiry, and secondly to examine potential revenue sources to meet those investment needs.
Councillor?
Can I just ask clarification on that last part of the motion 92? I suppose my question is, in that advocation, would it only be those industries, or does it exclude other industries, or it's just using those as examples?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, part 2 of that particular motion does specifically refer to major coal, oil and gas corporations. So it doesn't necessarily use them simply as an example, but I'm sure if the motion was to proceed through ALGA to the federal government, it would probably, because they're asking for an inquiry into the adequacy of particular funding, so it might go further than that. However, it's difficult to be able to provide any further explanatory information, as the motion is quite short in what it is trying to achieve.
I think Councillor Pizzi probably to try and assist as well. Motion 92 Part 4 says, ensure this inquiry, so referring to the parliamentary inquiry that's being advocated for, ensure this inquiry identifies concrete revenue sources to meet investment needs, including the implementation of taxes and levies on coal, oil and gas industries aligned with the climate damage their products cause. So I guess including may not be limited.
Sorry, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments on this item? Councillor Vinciulo?
Thank you. Through you, just a question for the city. Can I just get a bit more clarity on the officer's position on this notice of motion? Because in the pack it was very much supportive, but there was like a but. So I'm looking for just clarification on the officer's position on this.
Go to Director Parry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I probably refer to the city's climate change plan. Within there, that contains a strategic partnerships and advocacy project, which includes the city advocating to government agencies and stakeholders to support both corporate and community climate mitigation and adaptation initiatives. And reference there is through the provision of funding, monitoring and reporting. We also, the council has adopted that particular plan, so has adopted that advocacy project. Earlier, a couple of months ago, council endorsed a submission to WALGA in relation to their draft climate change advocacy position, which also included or called an element of that particular recommendation was for WALGA to call on the Australian and West Australian government to provide dedicated funding in relation to mitigating risks associated with climate change. So as detailed within the officer comment, we're supportive of advocating for the additional funding from federal government for mitigation and adaptation, but the council or the administration doesn't have a position on prescribing how that funding is actually acquired. Whether that be through taxes or levies hasn't been considered by the council at this time. So we partially support this resolution.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Any further comments by members? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, won't be supporting this. I know as a local government, the Act requires us to consider when making decisions, mitigating risks associated with climate change, but I think stepping into this and yes, I understand from my point of view, state should be funding a big chunk of whatever challenges we face in terms of these challenges, whether it be coastal or bushfire applications. Each local government has their own issues around that area, but in terms of trying to create an advocacy around where the money should be raised and doing it to a federal level, I'm just not supportive of that. We discussed, there's been numerous references around the costs of incurred to the city and general economy around issues in the Middle East, and that really is about the flow of what we call these products that are used for creation of energy. So if we're looking then to create some other additional cost burden on that area of the economy, are we just looking to drive up costs across the board as well? So from my point of view, that's a federal government challenge of how they fund the federal government. There's a state government challenge of how they fund that. We're seeking some funding, but how they go about sourcing their funding is for them to decide. I don't want to get involved in determining that we should be advocating to create additional taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further or final commentary? Just a few comments from me about this. When I received this motion, I looked at it, the first thing I thought about was when I saw the officer's comment was saying, was there a way to make this separable? So the parts which were partially supportive and seeing if those other elements could be separated from the other parts of the motion, which also seems to be the objectionable parts to other councillors. So when I looked at it, the way in which this motion was worded, if this had come earlier, maybe there was an opportunity to try and work with the wording in the notice of motion to try and get something to work. So for where I sit on this, I do support support advocating to the federal government for the National Climate Compensation Fund. And definitely, given that we now have these functions under the Local Government Act, where we must now plan for mitigating the risks associated with climate change, but also to be making sure we're making decisions that consider the long-term consequences for future generations. And I look at that and I take that quite seriously about trying to make sure that for these risks which will eventuate, that we have appropriate funding in place and appropriate funding mechanisms for them. The difficulty comes, and it's the first paragraph of the officer's comment on this one, the city partially supports this motion and is supportive of advocating to the federal government for a National Climate Compensation Fund, however does not support prescribing how the funding would be acquired. So I tried to see if there was a way I could separate those parts out of this, but by endorsing the entirety of motion 92, I can't see how we can separate those parts to try and vote on them separately. So with the motion then has to be considered as a whole and the different parts to it. And I guess the line I draw to myself is that there are merits in some of the things that are being proposed here. And I think there are merits in seeing some of these corporations paying an appropriate level of tax for some of the issues that they cause, but also other countries as well seem to collect much larger tax revenues from different industries that they have than we do in Australia. But the difficulty I have is when it comes to where is our role in local government in these things, and how do we, if we go down the route of saying to ourselves, okay, well, we will advocate on the tax policy of the Commonwealth to determine what things should be taxed or not taxed, to what extent do we then move that argument to other areas as well? Does it move into health policies, or does it move into other matters, the criminal code, or other things that impact our community in significant ways? And that's sort of where I have the challenge in this one, that there's elements that I really would like to support, but there's elements that I'm sort of worried about the role element, that if we stray into these areas, how do we then manage those problems that originate, that come along with that? The other problem I see with this too is that Part C seems to also be creating independent and separate advocacy from what's contained in Motion 92 as well. Motion 92 talks about creating a federal government inquiry and having an inquiry then look into what is an appropriate way to raise the revenue. Part C doesn't actually do that. Part C advocates directly for the fund and then puts a semicolon and says, and introduce a climate pollution levy on coal, oil and gas corporations. To me, if you had an inquiry and it looked at the mechanisms and found a way of saying what is an appropriate way of doing that or not, but in this, we're advocating for that directly without, to me, some of the arguments around this being made out. When I look at the reasons for the motion, how this would be done, and those arguments around advocating for that directly haven't been made out. Motion 92 does deal with something that's smaller, and it says, let's ask the Commonwealth to look at inquiries, then look at these mechanisms. This seems to be, we also have separate, independent and separate advocacy to what's actually contained in Motion 92 as well. So for me, those elements not being entirely separable, and then being point 2C seems to have something separate from what's in Motion 92. Motion 92 with the elements not being entirely separable for me causes me a problem that I can't actually deal with this motion to support it. As I said, there's things that I look at it that I see merits in, but at the same time, I think it is I think it can be problematic if we go down the route of trying to determine the tax policy of the Commonwealth, or we determine the health policy of the state, or we determine, the criminal code for the state government or the federal government. I think these things can't become quite problematic and contentious in our community. And do we have, as a council, the democratic authority to do that? When we run for local government here, usually we talk about upgrading local facilities, local matters, local environmental challenges, and trying to deal with those. So I guess I look at what is the consent we also have to the community and advocating into these areas too. So I guess I look at trying to keep this in a very more probably in a narrow role than maybe other people might. So I'll stop there. And Councillor Count, would you like to close?
Yes, thank you. Look, I've heard all the rebuttals there. I do want to reiterate, this is simply for putting this discussion to WAGA for further discussion and debate. This is not necessarily for us to form a solid position on, nor do we have any control over federal funding or tax policy. In regards to your question on health, we do similar things in that aspect. When Medicare was established in 1984, it came with increased taxes on alcohol and cigarettes due to the known damages that they had in the health system. We do something similar with, say, the new containers for change. We've increased the cost of canned drinks and added a return fee at a point of recycling. On your points on the wording, Motion 92, when I read it, it effectively covers already our WAGA's position. It's why I left point 2C as the standout, as that is effectively the main difference between WAGA's current position. It's also why I put point 4 in there, because it is open to make minor administrative changes to make this fit what would be ideal. But the merit of it is point 2C is the aspect that we're looking for. It's not fair that these costs continue to fall on taxpayers. These are going to only grow. I mean, the fact that we have had to establish a CHARMAP, an entire committee that did not exist a decade ago, simply to deal with the costs of climate change, it's just going to get worse. And simply asking the taxpayers to fund that is not good enough. I would love to see this debated at WALGA and see what the other local governments come up with in discussion on this policy, because I think it would be well supported. It's again not fair for the taxpayers to deal with the costs of this climate crisis while most of the profits currently go overseas. And I'll close my argument there. And I would love to see this debated at the WAGA's AGM. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. If we could then vote on the motion, please. Thank you, and the vote is not carried. So I think that's all the item on it. So we've got the confidential, we'll bring in Councillor Hill, and then we've got the confidential items to deal with. So if we'll have a meeting, you'll have a motion to close the meeting to members of the public. I'm willing to move. Could I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Could I have a show of hands of those in favour of closing the meeting to the public? Councillor Hutton, are you voting? Councillor Countin Vinciulo to close the meeting to the public? Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone in the public gallery, for attending. I know it's been a bit of a long night. Thank you for coming. Thank you. I'll need to read out the motions in accordance with clause 5.2 and 7. So could I get the motion for item 12.4? If that's okay. Thank you. In relation to the status of legal actions, the Council's office's recommendation passed. That's noting the status of legal action report for the matters that may have a contingent liability and are unresolved for the month of May 2026. For the further item, which was item 12.9, if I could get that on the screen. Thank you. For item 12.9, it's the one that considers the shortlisted candidates for the role as the independent person to perform the functions of the council under clauses 12 and 13 of the Code of Conduct for council members, committee members, candidates for the purpose of dealing with or dismissing a complaint or making a finding in relation to alleged breach as provided in attachment 2, endorses the following shortlist candidates for interview and consideration in the role of the independent person. That's candidates E, G, B, J, and L. Authorises the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Chief Executive Officer to interview the shortlisted candidates and for the CEO to arrange appropriate administrative support to the interview panel. And lastly, notes that a further report will be presented to Council for the appointment of an independent person to perform the functions of the Council under clauses 12 and 13 of the Code of Conduct for council members, committee members and candidates for the purposes of dealing with or dismissing a complaint and making a finding in relation to an alleged breach. Thank you. Could I have a motion to resume the order of business? I'm willing to move. Could I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Vinciulo. Could I have a show of hands of all those in favour? Councillor Pizzey? Yep. Could I have that again? All those in favour? Councillor, yep. Okay. That's carried unanimously. And that concludes all the items that we have for our agenda. So does anyone wish to announce a motion for the next meeting? No. Thank you. In that case, that concludes tonight's council meeting, and I hereby close the meeting at 9:10 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for attending.